All right, now the next position is for the microtainer, position F4. I'm not sure we want to do that, but hey, this is what determines how far the unit, the Z movement, how far it will go down the needle if you have a microtainer. If you choose microtainer, not micro cup, microtainer, put it in the unit. I usually use the microtainer that they use because some people use other products other than Stago. So I use whatever's on the at the customer site. I'm going to choose F2 to adjust it. F10. And the only thing this even allows you to do is the Z movements. Now you can see if I push this, I'm basically doing just the down movement. You can see if I had a larger microtainer or I pushed it down or something, how my down movement could change from one microtainer to the other. This is what's going to determine how far the maximum that needle number 1 can go down if you're using a microtainer, and that's assuming that you choose microtainer. We're all the way to the bottom. Hit F10 to validate. It's going to go to home position. And we'll do a test just because we did with the other one. And I'm not saying there's any reason to do this. At least not for my eyes. And you see I'm all the way to the bottom here. Anyway, on to the next step. Hit a scale. Let's see. We're not going to do, you've got a position for drawer number 1, needle number 1. That's for neonatal tubes. We're not going to do that. Same basic principle. Position 8, drawer number 1. That's for your oil and cone buffer. We'll do that just because we're here. F2. Not one that I worry about too much. Put your mapping tool in position 8, drawer number 1. Again, read the screen. And in theory, this should go right into the middle. Which it's a little off. Not much. It only can go really Z. I'm going to put it all the way down to the bottom. By the way, this is a good spot to see that the red light for liquid level detect comes on. I don't know if you can see that red light there, but that just tells you your liquid level detect is working. And that should come on at the bottom of these mapping tools. Hit F10, and it goes straight up. Now we're not going to test it in this particular position. For one, there's no X, Y, or Z movements. And I don't want to bend another needle. We'll have to start all over again. So now this is a key position. Drawer 2, position 11. When you get to the mapping, notice that, again, this is the only position that you map needles 1, 2, and 3. Everything else is needle number 1. That's because it takes this as a reference. Position 11. This is the key to making sure all your mapping for all your needles is proper. We're going to take our mapping cuvette, put it in needle number 1, or excuse me, put it in position number 11, F10 to validate, excuse me, enter, F2 to adjust, F10 to validate. Got a little ahead of myself. Okay, needle number 1 goes over it. This should, when I come down, it should go into the center. If you're going to be critical, this is the spot to be critical. Generally, I take a flashlight and I get my head right over it so that I know that it's in the center. And I want to move it a little to the right. Again, remember we also straighten that needle, so in theory we know we've got a straight needle, which is the problem when you got needles that have been bent, but okay. And then I'm going to go back one. I want this as dead center as I can physically get it. I'm going to go back again, using your arrow keys. I have no problem sticking my head in here. Okay, now we want to go all the way down to the bottom. Note, all the way to the bottom. Note my red light comes on. That has to come on, by the way. When it goes down, that's what's going to determine that it's down. It hits the bottom of the mapping cuvette. If you have any problems, by the way, with mapping cuvettes, take the copper piece off the bottom and clean it with a little emery cloth or something. After time, the mapping cuvettes get crudted up and they'll work well. All the way to the bottom. Going to hit F10 to validate. You see it going back and test it. And you know, I'm so sure of the mapping on this one, and I'm not suggesting you do this, because this is a good way to end up replacing a needle. But for testing purposes, we're going to go test F3. And I'm going to even leave my mapping cuvette. I'm brave here. And there it goes. I would not do that. I'm just showing you that, in theory, that it works well. And I'm all the way to the bottom here. As you can see, I can't pull it up. And that's the way it should be. Okay, now on to needle number 2. And again, position 11 is the only spot you do all 3 needles. It takes that and uses it as a reference for all needles. I think one of the things I'd like to point out is, since this is the only reference spot, if you're off in your mapping here with just needle 3, it's here is where you can adjust needle 3. This is your reference point, for lack of a better way. I'm not sure that's going to be explained explains that properly, but if you want to just move needle number 3 a little, even in the measuring on the measuring block or anywhere else, you need to change it here, not because it doesn't give you the option at other locations. If all of them are off, then you can kind of assume that that it's in reference to needle number 1. In other words, this is the reference point. All the other spots are referenced to this. This is the only spot that you map needles number 2 and 3. All other ones are needle number 1. You'll see when we get into them, even the measurement block, you don't use measurement 3, you use needle number 1. And again, I get right over it because I want it dead center. F10 to validate. My red light is on, and if you watch it go up and down, there it comes back on, and we're good mapping. If it's starting to chatter or something in there, you get a problem, because that's the way that should work. Goes to home. Now the same thing for needle number 3. Needle number 3, F2 to adjust. F10 to validate. Needle number 3 goes over. And again, this should go in the middle. This is the problem. Remember, this was the one I had the problem with on the last video. And it should go right in the center. Which it pretty much does. And again, remember, I straightened the needle, so I don't need to make any adjustments to the needle, because I straightened that when I did the mapping for the washing. I'm going to pull it over just one step to the right. I really try to be kind of anal here, because this is just a little more critical. Again, this spot is critical because they use this for reference for all the other positions. All the way to the bottom. Check, by the way, a warning, make sure all your mapping cuvettes always go to the bottom. Some of them are a little tight. I haven't seen that in a while, but they used to be. See, the red light is on. That's my liquid level detect. I'm going to hit F10 to validate. Went down, saw it. Now it's going to go to home position.